Right, good afternoon. My name is Matt Wadwani. This is Tyler Boiler, and we are from UC Berkeley, the Haas School of Business. Our methodology was based off twofold. One was to maximize revenue, and two, to make sure that every seat was filled. In the interest of time, I will provide a brief overview. Tyler will present our model and methodology using factors and apply it to the teams involved. And then I'll wrap up with some alternative suggestions and conclusion. So as you can see from the overview here, the NFL's tickets, the capacity has been going down the last few years. Prices have been going up. And some of the reasons for that could be macroeconomic factors, such as HD TVs are now cheaper. And then a lot of people like to watch Scott Henson on the Red Zone channel because they can flip through like 8 different games at a time. But we still feel the NFL is the most popular sport. It's the most profitable. And while it's at its top position, there's still room for improvement with a more sophisticated pricing model. I'll now pass it to Tyler.
Thanks, Matt. Excuse me. So first we wanted to look at a couple key factors. And we thought the first major, so the first major factor was around assessing aggregate demand. If there's not a sufficient amount of people that are actually interested in coming to the game, it really is going to affect our ability to set prices. So when looking at this aggregate demand, first we focused on who is the population in the general metropolitan area, what is their general interest in sports, and then more deeply inside that, we wanted to focus on the customer profile. What are the different income earning segments in the group, and what's their relative willingness to pay in each segment. So next, we wanted to look at some of the qualitative factors. So for this example, quality of on-field product matters quite a bit as well. So if the team is really successful, fans are obviously going to be more interested in coming to the game. If there's a lot of history associated with the particular program, that's also a benefit. The quality of the game day experience is also critical. How difficult is it for our fans to actually get to the stadium, and what's their experience like once they are there? We also looked at alternative options. So the pro and NCAA sports in the town are going to have a great impact on our fans' desire to actually come to the game. And then also, as Matt mentioned, watching on TV is another viable option and significantly cheaper. How much better is our experience for the fan than actually sitting at home and watching it? Finally, we looked at kind of the seat value, and this is one of the things we really wanted to focus on. So not all seats are the same. How much are fans paying in relative to how much are they actually getting? How much of the game are they able to see? How close are they able to get to the field? So that factor, along with the demographics, is what we're really going to focus on because those are easily quantifiable, and they're also not as likely to change year to year. The other qualitative factors are going to be really important, but they're going to be important in terms of adjusting the price off of the baseline that we set. So for our methodology, we looked at Nielsen data for the population and assessed the actual market for those teams. We then segmented the population by different income cohorts, so 0 to 35,000 household earnings and 35 to 50, for instance, so on. From this, we assessed how much those households spend on entertainment and sports-related fees and applied that to each income cohort. We then basically established an average ticket demand per household to come up with a reasonable range that they'd be willing to spend on tickets. Next, we qualified that demand pool using Harris poll data around what percentage of the population actually watches football and what percent attends games live. That gave us a qualified live spectator demand that we were able to use that data to apply to our individual teams. So I'll take you through a little bit of the pricing analytics model, which sounds painful, but we'll try to make it brief. For each team in each section, whether we broke down general admission versus club seats, and for that section, let's take, for example, the Oklahoma City Knights and looked at their general admission seats. Was there excess demand? In that case, there is. So we want to increase the price, but the question is, by how much? So we then looked at data on secondhand price markups, and we basically established a buffer of 25% to say that if season ticket demand, if prices on the secondhand market were greater than 25% of face value, we were going to increase the price by that amount. And the 25% was arrived at because we wanted some reasonable amount of secondhand markup in order to incentivize season ticket holders to actually buy their tickets instead of just going to StubHub and waiting on the day of the game. Once we established that price increase, we looked at our demand model and said, does the market allow for enough demand to actually support this price increase? If it did, then we increased and implemented that new price. If it didn't, we wanted to decrease the price to meet the actual demand. The case of excess supply is a similar process, the only difference being we obviously decreased the price until we met demand. So we don't have time to go through 4 case studies, so I wanted to focus first on the Los Angeles Bulldogs and applying how our actual model works to a real team. So thank goodness LA does have a football team because it supported revenue of $95 million a year over the last 3 years. We noticed that they have tremendous season ticket wait lists in general admission, and their club seats, well, they've been selling out their general admission seats to the tune of every game the past year. Their club seats and actual suites have not sold as well, and we recognize that as the biggest opportunity for improvement. They only sold at 71% of capacity this past year. Using our methodology, we noticed that we were able to increase average ticket for general admission to $124, and demand in the marketplace supported that. For club seats, we recommended a reduction in average price to $251. This, we believe, can increase total revenue based on the fact that we'd be able to sell all of our club seats at this price. Now, remember, that's an average price, so between the, at the 50-yard line, obviously our tickets are going to be higher than they would be in the end zone. Finally, the suites, we wanted to look at this on more of a specific basis, and it's hard to gauge exact demand just because it's based on individual companies and kind of your sales force. So we recommended a decrease in suites here to meet current demand, and that would, raise the actual, that would maintain the actual revenue and potentially give us more room to expand club or general admission seats. Our methodology applied to other 3 teams. The Portland Cobras, we increased revenue by, or actually I should back up, sorry. This is a total increase of 27% for the Los Angeles Bulldogs revenue, up to $121 million a year. When applying our methodology to other teams, we noticed a 6% increase for the Portland Cobras, a 3% increase for Oklahoma City, and a 6% increase for San Antonio. Now, it's important to note, though, that these are just kind of the low-hanging fruit. We could implement these prices immediately and increase revenues, but there's a number of other qualitative factors that we could improve to increase total revenue. And Matt's going to talk about a few of those.
Yeah, one of the first qualitative factors is dynamic pricing. So for instance, people will be willing to pay a lot more to go to the Cowboys-Giants game at the end of the year than they will be to the Cowboys-Seahawks game. So you can kind of implement that and increase your price, which will adjust our baseline. Secondly, season ticket guarantees. Some teams will provide a guarantee that your team makes the playoffs and give a partial refund if they don't, so you can base this off the probability that they're going to make the playoffs. And then improve the overall experience as, relieve the pain points. So for instance, I mentioned earlier about people want to stay home and watch their fantasy football games. And so what you could do is have like a hub in the stadium with, computers or TVs just where people can go check their games. And also, when you go to a game, at least in my experience, you don't have any cell reception. It's impossible to get online and check. So put a cell tower next to the stadium or a wireless network in the actual facility. And then lastly, waitlist fees. You can charge more money to people on the waitlist in exchange for tickets. These are just a few of the qualitative factors, and these will actually increase our baseline going forward in the model. To wrap up, ticket prices are dependent on a lot of things, but we feel we've created a quantifiable methodology to price tickets that can be applied to all 32 teams. And given the theme and nature of this conference, that was our goal. And we'd like to open it up for questions, and thank you for your time.
When you were talking about the secondary market and the 25% buffer, I just want to make sure I understand this. So if you saw greater than a 25% increase on the secondary market, did you bake the entire 25% into the primary ticket prices for that team?
So we really subtracted the 25%. So let's say we had a 50% increase. And as I mentioned, the The reason for that is we think some amount is kind of healthy, some amount of increase on the secondhand market is healthy.
And guys, I just want to make sure I understand as well. In the recommendations that you took us through, the excess demand example that you showed, you're not necessarily saying just because there's excess demand, there's going to be a higher price. It could ultimately be higher or lower.
On an average basis, I guess our model would suggest that if there's excess demand, we would increase the price, except if there's not either sufficient demand in the marketplace based on our data, or if there's not a sufficient secondhand markup, then we would leave the price the same. But one way, and I kind of hinted at it a little bit, but these are average prices and what we think, on average people could afford. But there's a lot of latitude within that, within each section to increase or decrease, specific prices.
I'm still trying to understand your methodology. It seems like your goal here was to have 100% sold, so you met capacity. How did that new capacity align with your old capacity? I'm looking at the Portland Cobras, and your suites go from 130 to 188, or I'm sorry, to 88. So what did you do with that extra sort of space with, some of the other teams sort of allocated one ticket type to another ticket type? I'm confused with how you sort of then reallocated the stadium.
So these were immediate recommendations, and I think there's some value we can all agree to having the stadium full. So in the short term, I guess that may mean, similar to what some NFL stadiums do for soccer, of blocking out certain sections or blocking out suites. But I think the goal would be, if the infrastructure is there, once those other qualitative factors were able to improve, such as wins or, overall experience, that we could then increase that amount. But for the time being, it's the hope that, if we sold 88 before, we now can sell, that same 88, and maybe as the team improves, there's more demand for those, and we can increase the number of suites.